Like they say, the only permanent thing in life is change. It is no longer news that the Nigerian prison service as it used to be has ceased to exist. It has given way for a new order, the Nigerian Correctional Service. Imprisonment has never been a strange concept to any human society. Different communities had different ways of addressing issues that had to do with maladjusted persons within the society. However, the advent of modern-day prisons came to be in Nigeria in the year 1872. This was put in place by the British colonial administration, and they had this in place to keep in custody those who were opposed to their economic interests. However, between then and now, so many changes have been brought to bear. However, the efforts that have been made seem to be a far cry from what is required. So many gaps persisted, and that gave room for the clamor for a new vista, a change, an atmosphere that will address such gaps. Despite the many efforts made by successive administrations of the Nigerian prison service, a lot of gaps still persisted. Gaps in areas of addressing the needs of vulnerable persons in custody, like children and women. Gaps in areas of congestion. These and many more necessitated the clamor for a change that will address the aforementioned gaps. Finally, change has come. What does this change hold for us? To throw more light on this, we have the Public Relations Officer of the Nigerian Correctional Service, Controller of Corrections, Francis ENOBORE.
The changes that are in the new order are many. To start with, before now, the Nigerian Prison Service, as it then was, derived its operational power from Decree 9 of 1972, which over time transmitted to what we call Capital 9, LFN 2004. And in that act, there was nothing really specific given to the service to do with respect to ministering to the moral gaps in offenders, apart from legal custody of those that are brought to us. And by extension, it limited our interaction with these inmates with respect to training them, reforming them, rehabilitating them, sending them back to the society, and a host of others. Talk about the problems that almost remained intractable in the system over time. That is the problem of overcrowding. Now the new order has made it explicitly clear what each agency should do to ensure that the facilities are not overcrowded. Take, for instance, Section 12, subsection 4, specifically now empowers the custodian that if within 1 week, if you are a superintendent in charge of a facility and you observe that your facility is overshooting its capacity, you are empowered within 1 week to make the observation known to the Chief Justice of the state, the State Attorney General, the Committee on Prerogative of Mercy, and the Committee on the State Criminal Justice Committee, and any other relevant body. And these bodies, they are expected within 3 months to do something to decongest that particular facility if we must take in additional inmates. Now, extension of that in Section 8 specifically empowers the facility manager, that is the superintendent in charge of the facility. Now, if within 3 months the respective agencies do not take adequate steps to decongest that facility, to reject intake of additional inmates, to a very large extent, it will address the problem of overcrowding. Talk about those that have been condemned to death. I tell you, presently we have well over 2,740 something persons on death row. Some of them have been there almost interminably. Some of them have exhausted all their legal means, to up to Supreme Court level. We are in democracy. Most state chief executives and the approving authorities are not willing to sign death warrant for these inmates to be executed. Yet they are just there, and they are very, very difficult to control. They've arrived at their final bus stop. They are no longer afraid of anything. But the present act, the Nigerian Correctional Service Act 2019, has now brought a lot of hope and succor to them. In fact, it was written with wild jubilation across the country among the inmates in this category. Because specifically Section 12, subsection C of the new act now says that if any inmate on death row and has exhausted his legal means up to Supreme Court level, has remained on that grade, that level for over 10 years, the state judge can now commute that death sentence to life imprisonment. So when you do this, you now empower the Controller General to decongest the facilities where they are now being kept to areas where we have wider spaces to minister to other needs. Because once someone is a death sentence is committed to life imprisonment, it means there is hope, because prerogative of mercy may set him free. So we can now subject that kind of a person to further training. And now we are also having the new law giving legal backing to the training and rehabilitation that we give to them. Record that we have sundry vocations ranging from carpentry to metalwork to dressmaking, name it, even with educational opportunities that we give to our inmates. But before now, the old Prison Act never talked about any of these activities. They were all creation of different controllers general, because they just felt you can't keep people in incarceration and then you allow them to vegetate, no training, no nothing. So to rein them in and introduce some level of control, different administrators started coming in with different form of training, like that. But now, Section 14 specifically empowers the service to carry out various training for those with us. And the beauty of that section is that for those that show enough remorse, enough penitence, and have undergone training, they can now be given certificate by the Honorable Minister on the recommendation of the Controller General. What does that certificate stand for? It means the toga of ex-convict will no longer be there. The prison is never meant to punish. Taking an offender to the prison as it then was enough punishment. It was never designed that you come in to the prison and you'll be punished. I don't believe that humanizing incarceration will encourage people to go into criminal activities. No. You see, the idea is to focus on the person behind the crime, to assess why he chose to be a deviant. That's why in the new order, part of the responsibility given to the custodial arm of the Nigerian Correctional Service is to carry out risk and need assessment. That is to profile the person behind the crime. Why did this person derail? Because that one will enable you to establish appropriate treatment regime. Does this person need psychological intervention? Does he need spiritual or religious intervention? Does he need job therapy? Is it a social interaction or intervention he needs, first of all, that individual is profiled to establish where the gaps exist. So that is what we do. So it will not in any way encourage criminal activity. Rather, those that found themselves on the wrong side of the law will come in, will be well received, will be shown that, look, it's not as you are not here because the society hates you. You are here because there are certain things you do that are not in conformity with what the general populace want. Do it this way, you will be accepted, and you'll be surprised some of them will live, fantastic human beings. There has never been a time where you keep hardened criminals with minor offenders. There are still these forms of separation that we carry out in our facility. Yes, due to excessive congestion phenomenon in some areas, these separations may not be as adequate as you would have loved them to be. But specifically, the new law now provides that minor infractions will no longer necessarily be taken to pass through the full hog of legal process, and that will end up in incarceration. For instance, there's this typical example that my boss used to give, that a boy that was accused of stealing 4 watermelon in the farm, he got there, ate the 4 watermelon in the farm. Unfortunately for him, the farmer came, caught him, and he ended up in our facility for 4 months awaiting trial. So we now have the second part of the Nigerian Correctional Service to minister to minor infractions like that. We call that one non-custodial measures. The non-custodial measures, which is provided for in section 37 of the new act, spells out what that non-custodial measure is to do. Number 1, to address minor infractions through community service. If, like the case of that boy that stole watermelon, he can be asked to sweep the gutter for 1 week or 2 weeks, or go to a public cemetery, clear for 2 weeks, or go to a public hospital, do some cleaning for 2 weeks, and goes home. When you do that, it becomes a win-win situation for everyone. The society whose moral standing was violated will gain. The individual, the offender, will also gain because he will no longer be in incarceration. He will be useful to his parents or his wife, as the case may be. And of course, the offender, he may even be asked to carry out some restitution. Go to that man's farm, weed for him for 1 or 2 weeks. So that is what the new order is preaching. And secondly, it could be on probation, in which case it can be released to a probation officer. And another arm of it could be parole. You can, maybe some of the offenders that have been in incarceration for a number of years and have shown enough remorse and some level of trust, good behavior, they can be released on parole to say, okay, you for the next 2 months be of good behavior, go off crime. And the third leg is the one we call restorative justice. Restorative justice, as provided for in the Act in section 43, specifically states that the restorative justice can be in other victim offender mediation, or family group conferencing, or community mediation. All these things are designed to ensure that an offender, when he goes back to the society, is well accepted. It reduces recidivism. And again, the interest of the victim this time around is being considered. Before now, if a lady's bag was snatched, if they apprehend the offender, he faces the law, he ends up either in the custody or whatever. The interest of that person whose right was abused was never considered. But this time around, you try to get some level of mediation between the offender and the victim. And when you do that, you win the fight and you win the war. Because the offender will one day go back to society. If you are able to cement one way or the other the relationship between the offender and the victim, the acrimony that exists, that builds up in the minds of some people, some victims, that I will never forgive, I will never have anything to do with this person, will be reduced. So there are so many inputs in the new order that have been designed to address the age-long, challenges we were having. I talked a little ago about the issue of condemned inmates and then those that will now be giving certificate. When you do all this, you are decongesting not only the facility, you are also encouraging societal acceptance to accommodate those that have offended. That is never there. Because if you don't do that, human beings are social animals. If you keep saying this person is an ex-convict, the parents do not want him, the society do not want him, the religious body, they look at him like an outcast. Of course, there's a group that is ready to accept him. And at the end of the day, it will not speak well for the entire members of society. So that's why when this bill was signed and made an act of the parliament, we received it with lots of excitement.